Hello, my name is Sarah. Join me as we create a lovely sequins patch for my daughter's best friend Stella. We moved from the US to Germany a couple of years ago due to career relocation and have since settled in a village of the Rhineland-Pfalz state. My daughter faced difficulties in forming relationships with other kids in this area. Fortunately, through school, she became a popular kid and formed genuine friendships with local German girls. Stella is one of her best friends, and I have watched these girls grow together. Of course, all teen girls face their challenges, but these two together are up for it and have overcome many challenges. Teen girls truly need a support system and individuals with genuine hearts that will go about their way to lift each other up and elevate together too. As a minority millennial from immigrant parents, I had a difficult time connecting with friends growing up. I was too embarrassed as my parents were not good with money and I lived in poverty. In my daughter's case, this is not her challenge nor her problem. As a mother, no way would I pass down my disappointments or my challenges in life to her. My daughter deserves the best and that she has in our village, school, and community. I'm just happy and amazed how Sophie and Stella look out for each other in school, partner up for school projects, are dedicated in supporting school events, and spend time together. Every time they are on school break, they plan on doing fun things together, and I do not hesitate to drive them to their destination. It could be a theme park, a sleepover, a birthday party, or ice skating. I knew Stella's birthday was approaching, so I asked her what cartoon figures or animals did she like. She stated Black Panther. Initially, I thought she said Black Panther as the action hero in Marvel Comics. She corrected me and informed me she loved the Wildcat Black Panther. Her aspirations was to be a veterinarian. So then I proceeded to ask her for her favorite colors. She mentioned purple and blue. Black isn't necessarily her favorite color, but it is the color of the wildcat. In feng shui, purple is a fire color that represents spirituality, passion, and wisdom. The color blue, which is of the water element, represents loyalty, calm, and depth, like in emotions. Black is of the water element as well, and absorbs all the other colors or reflects it. With this in mind, I started to search for cute Black Panther images for ideas through Pinterest. I love Pinterest. Every single project idea, food, recipe, drink recipes I find through the site. I came across a couple of Black Panther options, but only one image stood out for me due to its basic simplicity. This image originates from the Vecteezy site, but does not really provide a direct name of the artist who created it. I love that it only has 3 different colors to it, so this will be perfect with regards to the color selection of the sequences and the beads. Of course, I read the Vecteezy use of images agreement and selected the free download option. The stipulation of the usage of the image is to provide credit, so therefore I provided the link to their site for users to search and explore. There are many other images available, and depending on the use of the image will determine the cost. I am not selling this product, nor am I reproducing it, other than making a one-time sequence patch to give to my daughter's friend. I respect the artist's work and do not wish to profit off their work without their knowledge and approval. So I suggest if you plan on using someone's work for profit, then you should provide credit to the original artist or owner of the image. Something to keep in mind with sequencing projects. It takes time. It's not a one-day thing and you are done. It takes days, maybe even weeks. It all depends on your schedule. Hand sequencing is a unique art and requires a lot of patience, humility, and creativity. Anyone can do this, but not everyone has the patience. For me, at the time of this project, I needed to stay away from the internet and the news. There was too much negativity and I don't vibe with that. So sequencing got me through the nonsense going on in this world, and I am proud to show this off and give it to a beautiful soul. The young generations need wisdom, our optimism, and our way forward in an ever-evolving and chaotic world. Don't live with or in fear. Create your safe space. So now it's time to obtain the items needed for this project. First, we will start with the sequences. We have local shops that sell sequences for art projects. In Germany, I love to shop at Woolworth, Teddy, Obi, and Hornbach for arts and crafts materials. Woolworth is like an equivalent to what Kmart was. Teddy is like dollar store and a bit like Michael's, and Obi and Hornbach are garden and home centers with a section for crafts. They are like Lowe's and Home Depot. Now, there is a difference in the types of sequences you obtain. In my case, Germany lags options in many products, so I will work with what I'm able to obtain here. There are raised bended sequences and flat ones. My preference is the flat sequences as they look even and smooth, but as mentioned, I work with what I got. And in my case, sadly, the light purple color that I was seeking is not available. Amazon would be the alternative option, but I did not find the color I was seeking and the flat type sequence either. So for the sun background, I decided to use the color pink. Pink in feng shui represents love and compassion and is also of the fire element. Knowing Stella has a heart of gold and her love for animals, I think the pink sun background is fitting for describing her heart. If you are in Europe, the brands to search for online are Do-It-Yourself Handmade and Glorix GmbH. The next product I obtained are the beads. I want to experiment, so I got the long colored blue beads and also the blue small beads. This image does not show the actual blue that I had purchased as I ran out, but it was from the Do-It-Yourself Handmade brand. It's luck of the draw when it comes to finding colored beads and sequences in German shops. You can tell not many frequent to this section of the store. The next item you will need are strings. To be honest, there is a difference in quality of the string you purchase or use. Some strings will snag and are hard to maneuver through a tiny needle, and others go in smooth like buttercream. The basic tool you'll be using is two types of sewing needles. There are needles with a small head and needles with a big head, which are fairly large. When sewing in the beads, a small head needle is needed due to the size of the hole in the beads. A large needle will not fit through the small beads, but the large needle will work perfectly fine going through the hole of the sequences. The next item needed is the background embroidery cloth. It's almost like cheesecloth where you can see through the threads. I found my roll of cloth for very cheap at Teddy's. As you can see, I have already used a bit of it for other projects that I will share on this channel. You'll need a wooden hand embroidery hoop. There are various sizes. I used the small and then eventually the big hoop. It is all dependent on your preference and comfortability. The next item is a fabric sheet with glue. These can be found in fabric stores. I still have the one I bought years ago in the States from Joann's Fabrics. I love that store and I hope it is still around. This sheet is going to be used to stabilize the strings on the back of the patchwork, so this way the sequences and beads do not detach or get pulled to the point the strings snap or tear apart. It's like the corset of the patch. The next item is the outline of the image. Black makes the image more pronounced and stand out. I purchased this suede thin ribbon in Mueller in the craft section. There are varieties of strips of black ribbon you can find in fabric stores and craft stores. In my case, I love the boldness of this material and it's perfect to make the image stand out. Lastly, the patch background I used is the felt fabric. I thought about using Velcro so Stella could sew it on a tote bag or sweater or t-shirt, but I did not like the thickness of Velcro and what it would cause to the patch. With felt cloth, she can easily sew it on and unstitch off if she wishes on any garment, or frame it. Due to limitations of sizes, I purchased two to ensure the image would fit on the backdrop. So now we begin tracing. I downloaded the Black Panther image for free from victizi.com and printed it in PDF format. Of course, I resized the image to be large enough to fit on the back of a jacket or a hoodie. Once I printed the image, I taped it onto the window. I cut a piece of the background embroidery cloth to fit the size of the PDF printout. Then taped it on top of the image on my window during the day to obviously trace over it. With an ink pen, I started outlining the image. I kept flipping the cloth to capture the 3 different shades and tones on the image. Once I felt I covered all the outlines of the image, I removed the cloth and taped the frayed edges so the cloth would not continue to unwind. Before we begin sequencing, or as I like to state, color the image, I will demonstrate the way to attach the sequences and the beads. Don't mind my camera focus as I only have a tripod to hold my cell phone. Obviously, you are going to match your sequences and beads with the appropriate color string. If you are limited with string colors, use the closest match. Okay, so here I am prepping the items needed. You'll grab your needle and your sequences. It's easier to get on a roll by having a few sequences out. You'll grab your string and cut about 2 feet and pull one end of the string through the large needle head. Good luck on this. Once you pull the string through, you'll tie both ends of the string twice to secure it from going through the embroidery cloth. Make sure to double knot it. If comfortable, you can sequence without a wooden embroidery hoop, but I don't recommend this as sequences tend to weigh down the fabric. When you grab your wooden hoop, separate the outer hoop from the inner hoop. Place the inner hoop on a flat surface, then place the embroidery cloth on it and centered. Flatten and straighten the cloth placement and slowly place the outer wooden hoop over the cloth and over the whole inner wooden hoop. Adjust the outer hoop screw to tighten and grip the cloth. Now you'll grab your needle and pierce from under the cloth at the spot you wish to begin at. The double knot of the string should not slide through the cloth, but in case, sew a small stitch and bring the needle back through to the front side. If you have good eyesight or wear glasses, you'll notice the grid on the fabric created by the white strings. Noticing this and being able to see this will help you make your next move and provide a guideline for a consistent route. Once the needle is back up on the front side, add the first sequence by placing the needle with string through it. Now, there are various directions you can move forward to. For this tutorial, we will go north or at 12 o'clock. So what I am doing is the fishbone stitch, where I stitch diagonally from the sequence center at the northeast or at 1:30 o'clock direction. You want to ensure you are directly on the edge of the sequence, with no distance in between the stitch and the sequence. Drive the needle underneath the cloth, through the hole of the sequence and then change the direction now to northwest at 11:30 o'clock direction. Basically, this outcome should look like the letter V stitch coming from the center of the sequence. And now we will contribute to our journey by pushing the needle from underneath the cloth up at 12 o'clock of the same sequence so we can add the next sequence. From here on, it's basically a repetitive process of all the steps mentioned before. Now, the reason why the sequences are placed halfway through on top of each other is to cover the string stitching. It gives it a clean, seamless look. You can curve the direction of the sequence line by changing the stitch angle lines or keep it straight. Once you are done with the last sequence or are reaching the end of the string, cut the strings at least by 2 inches from the cloth. Then twist, tighten, and tie them into a double knot so the sequences are not loose on the other side. Then cut the string and allow there to be some excess length to enable some flexibility. String is not elastic, and sometimes the quality of the string may not be great. Now on this tutorial, we will use the remaining string from the black sequences. I will transition it to stitch the beads on. I placed a few small black beads on the table for easy access. It's better to have a plastic bowl to put the beads to easily scoop with your needle instead of trying to grab one by hand individually and putting it on the needle. Those needle pokes can be annoying and hurt. I recommend just place a few beads in a plastic bowl and use it. So now I am going to fit a few beads on the needle. As you can see, they all don't slide through the needle. I need to change the needle to the small head needle. Of course, I cut the string and secured the back of the black sequence row. Now we are going to reuse the same string and place it through the small needle's head. This is a bit challenging if you don't have experience sewing. Once the string is through the needle, tie both ends and double knot it. Pierce the needle and string through on the designated spot of your cloth. Now we begin with sewing our first small bead. Slide the needle through the small bead, then stitch directly above the initial stitch, basically 12 o'clock of the bead. When you pull the needle and the string from underneath, you'll see the bead tightening towards the cloth. I like to ensure the bead is secure, so I do another round of stitching through the bead again and back down under. Now, instead of stitching each individual bead for a large image, you can do a train of beads. Basically, slide a couple of beads, no more than 10, on the needle down to the surface of the cloth. Once you have the beads in place, stitch at the end of the row. To help straighten the row, use your opposite thumb to press down and secure the beads. With your opposite hand, pull the needle and the string. Now bring the string and needle back to the front by going directly at 3 o'clock of the space or gap between the first two beads. Then slide the thread over to the other side and ensure that the thread lays between the beads. Use your opposite thumb to maneuver the thread and pierce the cloth at 9 o'clock on the other side of the gap between the beads. And now you'll go to the next gap line and repeat the steps mentioned. You will build a railway of string all the way to the end of the bead row. At the end of the bead row, stitch to the bottom and secure the string by cutting, twisting, tightening, and tying into a double knot. Now, we will sew some long glass beads. Take a few out and place them in a good location. Use a small plastic bowl to easily access the beads without them falling all over the place. Now make sure to grab and cut the right colored thread. This time though, I'm going to show how to sew multiple long beads. Similar to the small beads, you'll pull the needle through at least up to 5 long beads or less. I use the needle to scoop out the beads in a plastic bowl. You are basically creating a train of long beads. Once you have them lined up and tucked all back, you will use your thumb to press down the string and hold the edge of the row of beads back. With the other hand, pierce and stitch into the cloth at 12 o'clock of the last bead. Use your thumb to hold the beads in position and pull the string slowly, but not super tight. The beads obviously will seem loose or feel like they are hanging, but this is when you'll create your railway system to tighten them and secure them down. Now with this method, you can do this for a straight line of long beads or curved line of long beads. For our general purpose, I'm going to add a curve. I want to undo the stitch. The easiest way is to drive the needle back through the same grid hole it had went through. You'll need some good eyes or reading glasses and concentration for this reversal. You could also use a magnifying glass to help you find the hole. Pierce the needle point in the same hole as if you are sewing backwards and pull the string. If this does not work or doesn't completely pull out, pull the string on the back slowly and gently. If this does not work or doesn't completely pull out, pull the string on the back slowly and gently. You can use a separate needle to pull the stitch, then string and needle back out of the hole. Bear in mind, if you want to build a curve of long beads, pull the middle of the row gently down or to the side to create that curve. Apply pressure with your thumb and begin sewing between the first gap. Once you have the needle back where you want to start the change, you'll pierce the cloth at 3 o'clock of the gap between the long beads. Then go to the opposite side at 9 o'clock and pierce the needle down to the cloth. Then go from under the next gap and continue on with the routine. Let's begin coloring. I wanted to start with the shading of the cat, so I prepared my beads that I was going to use. The option I had was either use the tiny beads for shading or use both the small and the long glass beads. I started on the cat's face to see what I was working with and the colors I wanted to use. For the outline of the cat, I decided to use the small beads, and for the shading of the muscles facing the viewer, I decided to use the long beads. I got too excited on coloring that I started doing the black sequences on the cat's head and completed his eye. For the green sequences, I found them in the craft section for kids at Hornbach, but they had no holes. They were shaped as triangles, but were a bit big, so I snipped 2 of the triangles to form an eye. Then I used a tack pin to poke holes in the middle of the sequences and then sewed them on with green string. In the following images, you will see the progression. I continued with the whiskers and used these pink transparent beads that ended up looking like white color. At one point, I noticed I was not going to have enough of the small blue beads, so I focused on the claws, then finished the shading of the long blue beads, and then used up all the small blue beads in other areas. Then I added the black sequences in batches. Basically, this part took days. It took me about 5 days, around like 3 hours each day to get the panther colored. There were a few areas that appeared white and not colored, so I used additional beads depending on the location of the shadows, and also had to cut some sequences to fit. In many areas, I cut the circular black sequence in a triangular-like shape to cover corners and square-like shapes or rectangles to fit between small spaces. Sequences don't have to be all round. Bear in mind, as long as they fit and cover the image completely, it will look amazing. When the panther was completed, I grabbed a medium-sized dish plate and traced a circle to represent the ground and the sun. This outline will provide direction as to where the sequences will trail towards to. I started with the violet-purple sequences for the ground. In the image, you can see the different directions the sequences were facing. To me, it did not matter because I wanted it to look like the ground. After completing the ground, I started by outlining the panther of where the rays would cause a glow on the cat by using these bright red-orange sequences. I found these at the kids' craft section as well and noticed they did not have any holes, so I had to makeshift with a tack pin and pierce the holes. Then I proceeded to work on the sun with the pink sequences. For the sun, I started with the outer line and went clockwise. Then I started the next row and continued on until I completed the bottom center. Once the sun was fully covered, it was time to secure the strings on the back of the patch. I cut the fabric sheet of glue to size and placed the rough glue side facing down of the back of the patch. Once the iron was heated on high heat, I ironed over the wax paper to ensure the glue side melted onto the strings and fabric. When you iron the glue fabric, ensure your iron does not touch the cloth at all. You can add wax paper and iron over wax paper only, because if you don't, you'll have burnt sticky glue on your iron and mess up anything you iron after this project. You'll notice the patch kind of hardening and straightening out. When you iron the glue cloth, the sequences straighten and align nicely due to the tightening of the strings on the back with the glue. Now that the patch is colored, the background has to be added in order to attach this piece to a garment. For this, I combined the edges of 2 felt tip pink fabrics by using the sewing machine. To ensure they do not unstitch and come apart, I stitched 3 lines down the edge. Once I had the felt fabric background in a bigger size, I set up my sewing machine by placing pink string and then pinned the sequence patch onto the felt fabric. Then slowly sewed around the edge of the sun onto the felt fabric with the sequences facing up. After this, I changed the string on the sewing machine to black and sewed down the feet of the panther on the felt fabric. I wanted to ensure the whole outline was sewn onto the pink felt fabric. There was excess embroidery fabric, which had to be slowly and gently cut out, as shown in the picture. Once the embroidery fabric was gone, it was time to do the outline. I grabbed the rolled up suede string ribbon and started to slowly stitch it around the outline of the image. There were parts where I had to cut and start a new outline as the image is not completely a circle. In the artist image, there are shadow lines on the ground. So I attempted to replicate by cutting the ribbon into different lengths and then sewed them down. Once I completed it, I cut the felt fabric about 1.5 inches away from the outline. And there you have it, a unique masterpiece of time and love. This was a challenging piece in my opinion, because it's not a direct image as many other pieces like Kermit the Frog or Hello Kitty. It was fun to make and absolutely enjoyed the challenge and the outcome of it. My daughter provided it to Stella on her birthday, and she was amazed by the gift and the detail behind it. You can create these sequins patches and wear them, display them, or even showcase them. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial and share your creations with me at Creative Art Space in Instagram and Facebook. Have a lovely day.